I have this idea of buying living property in one of the Western countries to spend some time there and move to Thailand when the winter is coming. So my year would be 50-50 Thailand and England, for example, or Thailand and the US, or Canada. You got the idea. I already bought a condo in Thailand. You can check my video about this on my channel, and please subscribe to my channel so you won't miss my next video. So the easy part is done. Condos in Thailand are cheap, around 80 to 100k. The average new house price in the US now is $500,000 and higher. I don't know why I have this idea of owning property when the current ridiculously high prices to buy. You can rent one almost like until the end of your life. Maybe some childhood trauma when my parents didn't have one and it was like the ultimate goal for them to have one. Rent or buy is probably a topic for a separate video. I need to own, full stop. This is purely emotional, not rational. I assume that you also caught yourself a couple of times thinking about how to buy a home. Then you looked at the prices and put this idea away for some time. You probably even contacted a bank for calculation of a required down payment and your interest rate. It's natural. We all want to own a home. If you have your own place to live in, you'll need to have just food to basically survive. So if you have a home and you don't need to pay rent, your future is protected. Okay, now that we are on the same page, it's time to put how can I make $500,000 into this equation, or even how much I need to invest now to have 500k in, let's say, 10 years. Also, don't forget to account that the house price will grow during these 10 years too, so our investment should outperform the housing market inflation. It is worth saying that I exclude mortgage for now, as my strategy is to avoid paying interest to a bank. Having a fully remote work, I can live anywhere, so instead of giving down payment to a bank to start 30-40 years slavery mortgage, I'd better invest it and see how this investment will grow to the level of enough to buy a home. In the meanwhile, living in a low-cost country like Thailand. You can check my video about what I spend in a day living in Thailand. So today we will talk about the current housing market, and in the end of this video I'll tell you how much you need to invest and what you should invest in to have the amount to buy your brand new house in 10 years. I'll make a model showing how much you need to invest now to buy a house in 10 years, assuming the housing market will continue to grow as fast as it grew in the last 10 years, with the following investment scenarios. So first, investment in S&P 500 ETF. Second, investment in broad US market ETF, VTI. Third, investment in Bitcoin. And fourth, investment in my current portfolio, which is a mix of Bitcoin, stocks and bonds, and property to rent out. Let's look at the current housing market first. We're gonna look at charts. You know, I absolutely love charts. Pie charts, diagram, trend lines, true nerd. Let's start with the new house average sales price in the US. The price in May 2014 was 324k. May 2024 it is 526k, a 62% increase for the last 10 years. I'm adding Canada's and UK's charts, and even though the prices are different, with Canada being expensive more on average and UK being cheaper, you can see that the correlation between all three charts is pretty strong. If the US goes up, other markets usually go up too. So look at the increase of the house price, 62% jump to more than 500k level. What were the drivers? We see the steepest increase is between 2020 and 2022, the COVID and after COVID years. First, let's add the Fed rate to the chart. You see that after pandemic in 2020, the rate was cut almost to zero, making the cost of mortgages low. Also, let's look at the level of money supply, M2, which is the US Federal Reserve's estimates of the total money supply, including all the cash people have on hands, plus all money deposited in checking accounts, savings account, etc. There was 15.4 trillion US dollars in economy in February 2020, and in just 4 months, in June it was already 18.1 trillion. That's an 18% increase of money supply in just 4 months. That was mostly new printed money and injected into the economy through the stimulus programs. Low rates and money printing resulted into excessive demand and huge inflation. Housing prices exploded, inflation hit records. To stop that, Fed started to gradually increase the rate in 2022 and 2023, making it the highest in decades. Mortgages became extremely expensive and housing market started to cool down as Fed keeps its rate at peak level of 5.5% for almost a year already, with rumors that the rate will start to be cut in several cuts as soon as September 2024. Some countries already cutting, like Canada and UK. Interesting fact highlighted in market overview briefing made by Interactive Brokers the other day, that the current high prices and expensive mortgages slowed down new home sales by 7.4% on year-over-year basis. Interactive Broker is a broker I use for all my stocks and bonds investment. Registration link you can find in the description to this video. As we already know from the cycle, when the rates were low, is that the prices will start to grow again, even though Fed chair said he doesn't see the rate to be as low as it was in 2020. Another important event is coming, elections in the US, and Fed chair could be replaced and the new policy is unclear with the new management. However, I don't think the era of near 0% rates is coming anytime soon, taking into account that inflation is still echoing from the last cycle. Important to say that population is growing in the US and most Western countries due to immigration policy, and the housing starts, which is the number of new residential construction projects that have begun during the particular months, a blue line, don't grow as fast as population is growing. So here we are, with the housing pricing bounced back from its peak prices in December 2022 and still cooling down in 2024. However, the significant drop in prices expected by many, similar to the one after 2009 crisis, didn't happen. Therefore, we can easily assume that the housing prices will continue to grow, and a scenario of another 62% increase in the next 10 years is possible. So we need $852,120 in 10 years from now to buy a new house. How much we need to invest today to reach that level in 10 years, and invest in what? Let's look at the following options. Invest in S&P 500 index ETF. With the annual return for the last 10 years, we get a return of 11% per annum. We accounting for capital gain tax of 15%. We need to invest $259,000 today in S&P 500 ETF to buy a house in 10 years. Invest in US broad market ETF VTI. Annual historical return for the last 10 years is 10%. So we need to invest $366,000 to get a house. Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the best performing asset in the last decade. It did more than 26,000%. If that was to repeat, you'd need to invest just $6,000. But I hope you understand that it has high volatility, and the historical performance of the asset isn't guarantee of its future performance. So that's why for calculation of option number 4, we annualize Bitcoin performance for the last 6 years to remove the extreme increase in its price from the low values in the beginning of its existence. The structure of my current portfolio is the following: 51% stocks and bonds, 30% Bitcoin, 20% property to rent out. My stocks and bonds annualized return on Interactive Brokers is 15%. Bitcoin's annualized performance for the last 6.5 years is 21%. And return of my condo in Thailand for rent out is 6%. It brings us to the number of $281,903 you need to invest in my portfolio to buy a house in 10 years. We see that if you were to spend the same amount as a down payment to buy a house today, it is 68 and 70% for S&P 500 and VTI respectively, more than 1% if Bitcoin to repeat its last 10 years rally, and 54% for my current portfolio. It's your choice to get a house now but to pay a ton of interest to a bank for the outstanding mortgage, or wait for 10 years until investment will buy you a house, living in a low-cost country during this time like I do. Thanks for watching, bye!